Hello everybody, Fate here, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm here to go over what has me the most hyped for Echoes of Wisdom, and what about the trailers so far are giving me concern. So first, let's start with the dungeons. I'm extremely excited for the potential of classic dungeons returning to the series in Echoes of Wisdom, especially in a 2D format where you can really just feel the design, like emanating as you play through the dungeon. And they even use the words, I believe, massive to describe the dungeons in this game. However, I do have some concern about it as well. Will these dungeons be like the dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom? Will it be a situation like Tears of the Kingdom where they sort of, they said, oh, don't worry, like we fixed the dungeons, they're back, dungeons are back, and then you play the dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom, and they're just not back. They're not classic dungeons in any way, shape, or form. So, in that sense, I'm extremely excited for the dungeons, but I guess I'm not concerned about them. I don't really have a reason to be concerned about them based on what I've seen, but I'm more worried about what the truth level is on the massive dungeon part in the third trailer. So yeah, that's the dungeons. I'm extremely excited for them, but we'll have to wait and see. I think the jury is still obviously out on whether those dungeons are actually going to be real classic 2D dungeons. Anyways, let's move on into the overworld exploration. So first, I'm very excited to see how the new direction of total openness in the series will change how exploration works in 2D Zelda. Obviously, we had a Link Between Worlds, but a Link Between Worlds was worlds. A Link Between World, no, it is worlds. Yeah. Okay, I'm not tripping. A Link Between Worlds did not have quite the same style in terms of total openness that the most recent games, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, have, and that it appears this game is going to have. So I think it's very interesting to think about how this openness is going to change how the exploration works. And then another reason I'm really excited for the overworld exploration is there just seems to be a lot more biomes in this game compared to the past 2D Zelda games. In past 2D Zelda games, you kind of just have your like grassy area in the middle. You have your like big forest sort of in the top left. You have your mountain area in the north. You have your like waterish area and your desertish area, and that's kind of it. And this game, it looks like there's going to be a lot more. You get like a swamp area. You obviously still have your desert area, but then you have like mountains and lava, and it just seems like there's a lot more going on here compared to other 2D Zelda games. I'm very excited to see how it's going to feel. And then another reason to be excited to explore is the rifts are like the distortion world from Pokemon Platinum, and they look very fucking cool. So that's another reason to be very excited, I think, to explore the overworld in this game, because yeah, it just looks cool. It looks fun to explore, and that is one of the strongest points that Zelda, the series as a whole, generally has going for it, and I expect that to continue here. One reason I am concerned about this overworld exploration, though, is will the rewards make it worth exploring, or will the reward system be lacking in the same way it is in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom? And that might open to a larger discussion about what Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom's shortcomings are in terms of a reward system. But just to put it like real quick, I don't think Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom give you a lot of reason to explore. And some of it is on the durability system, but some of it's just on like the lack of unique rewards that they give you, and like heart pieces no longer existing and stuff like that. So I do question how the reward system is going to work. Obviously, the spirit orbs are kind of like heart pieces, but then shrines are a whole other thing. That would all require its own video. But like, do they incentivize exploration enough is basically a question that I have in terms of the overworld exploration. Next up, I want to talk about more societies, more peoples, more races being in this game. So we see the Gerudo, not the Gerudo, the Gerudo for the first time, I believe, in a 2D Zelda. Correct me if I'm wrong. I guess. I don't know. Anyways, Gerudo in a 2D Zelda, not usually a peoples that shows up in these 2D games, so that's very exciting. And then you see the Sea Zora and the River Zora both in this game as well. That's very cool. The Gorons, I believe, their first appearance in 2D Zelda as well. And then the Deku Scrubs also making an appearance. So you just have more societies in this game compared to your usual 2D Zeldas, where honestly, is it usually just like the Zora and Hylians? Like, it's usually not a widespread of groups of people. So I'm very excited for that. Hopefully that means we get a lot more settlements in this game compared to your normal 2D Zeldas, more towns. I think that would be very, very nice to get. Next up, I have general puzzle solving concerns. So go ahead and chew on that while I take a sip of water real quick. Okay, so I think Tears of the Kingdom was generally hurt by how open puzzle solving is. Now, this could be not a fault of the philosophy necessarily, but just a fault that the game had. And philosophy doesn't necessarily mean that is always going to be bad. However, it does make me question, how will the open puzzle solving affect the puzzles in this game? Because generally, the puzzle solving in 2D Zelda is one of its strongest points. It just feels really tight and really awesome, and it makes me question whether this openness, this open style, is going to be a great fit for 2D Zelda, right? And obviously have the echoes and all that kind of stuff to make this puzzle solving very, very open. And I think that Tears of the Kingdom was really hurt by this open style. You could pretty much cheese your way through all the shrines and the dungeons. It was really hurt by it, I think. And I'm sure some people love that, but for me, I think that game breakingness, I guess, in terms of what the puzzles were and versus how they were supposed to be solved, or the tightness of compared to the tightness of past Zelda games. I think it was not as good. I just think it was not as good. So I wonder, how will that puzzle solving be affected in this game when it looks like it's going to have similar openness, or at least as much openness as a 2D Zelda game could have, and compared to a full-on 3D Zelda like Tears of the Kingdom. Wow. Finally, I want to talk about the UI real quick. From the trailers, Echoes of Wisdom appears to have a similar UI to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So, I just want to ask you guys, is this a good thing? Do you think Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have a good UI? I'm not sure. I'm convinced that it does. There's constant scrolling through menus, and in this game, with the echoes, there will probably be constant scrolling through menus for echoes, a la Fuse, and that is a major problem that Tears of the Kingdom had. It's just like the way that the UI works. And then also, when you hit the pause button, you go into your gear and stuff, the UI in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom exuded no personality. Like, when I hit pause, I think it's the best when a game can exude its personality from that. Obviously the Persona games, Shin Megami Tensei games, even Metaphor that's going to come out soon, they all do this, and I think it is obviously one of the great things that those games do is that they can really exude the vibe of the game based off that. And I think there's other Nintendo games that do this as well. I think Xenoblade 2 and Xenoblade 3 do this really well, and they have like Xenoblade 3 especially has a pause menu that sort of reflects how the world works and how the game works. So I just want the UI to be better than Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So I don't know if using it as a base is the best way to go. However, I will say in the trailer, it did look like it already had a lot more flavor in it, even just from like the one or two shots that we get of that menu. Or like of the UI in general. So I do think that it's already in a better spot compared to those games. Yeah, so those are most of my concerns, and I think most of what I'm hype about. I guess I'm also just kind of hype about using the guys, using other enemies to fight the other enemies. You know, I think that just the different sort of experience that using Zelda to fight with, like she can really fight on her own besides the meter, I think is going to provide a really interesting experience compared to the rest of the series. So I think that's going to be really interesting to sort of play around with. And yeah, hopefully I give you guys a little bit to think about in terms of concerns, but I also hopefully expressed a lot of reasons to be hyped about this game as well. But with that, we'll catch you in the next one.